And we're live. Hey folks, welcome back to the Dev Twitch stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a senior software engineer at Forem. Forem is the software that powers dev.
And I'm the open source community manager, Christina. And we have two guests here with us today. These are our newer coworkers. We have Katie and Suzanne, and they're going to introduce themselves a little, and then we're going to just kind of get into a discussion. So let's start with Katie, because she's on my side here, I see, and then we'll go to Suzanne if you just want to say
hi. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a senior software engineer at Forem. I started, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, same time as Suzanne, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's right.
It seems like forever, but yeah, it was only like 4 weeks ago.
hi.
It's not long.
All right. And then Suzanne.
Yeah, so hey, I'm Suzanne. I joined the same day as Katie, so just a few weeks ago, I'm a software engineer at Forem.
Cool.
All right. So go ahead, Nick.
I don't know, I was just gonna say cool. I'm super excited to have my new coworkers here because I was the only front end on the team until recently, so I am very happy that there are reinforcements. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Christina.
No, good point. So we have a lot of more people on our team now, but we didn't really have people focused on front end. Now we have two more awesome people focused on front end, which is great. Do either of you want to kind of talk about a little bit where you came in from or your background a little bit? Again, we can either start with Katie or Suzanne, whoever wants to go.
Yeah, sure, I can go. I started as a child and youth counselor, which was a very different job. I did that for 5 years, thereabouts, and then I got very tired of listening to other people's problems. So I decided to take a boot camp, and I did that, and I honestly got very lucky. I had like some really great mentors and people who hooked me up with jobs. So I started out by doing like email templates and stuff like that, and then I got into marketing dev, which is where I sort of learned more front end stuff. From there, I moved on to a couple of startups and did product development. And then for the past 2.5 years, I've been at Shopify, where I started out as like a front end dev, but I quickly moved into developer tooling. So I ended up in this like funny sort of almost middle stack because I wasn't doing any like HTML, CSS. I was doing more just like JavaScript stuff. So building out CLI tools, building out Node apps, stuff that we would help third-party developers scale. And then I did some work on a React Native app and ended up at Forem. That's my career condensed.
Awesome. All right, Suzanne, you want to kind of give your background a little bit, and then we can kind of touch on this a little bit more.
I'm also a career changer. So in a previous life, I did a lot of international student recruitment. So I traveled around different countries and tried to convince people to come and study at the universities that I worked for, which is an awesome job until you get tired of all the long haul flights and hotel room dinners. And eventually, so I sort of made my way up to sort of management level, but then you're kind of expected to deal with visa rules and immigration quite a lot, which I'm sure you can imagine it's similar in many countries, but in the UK, that got more and more depressing as time went on. So I just felt like I couldn't stay in that for the long haul. And through a really long soul searching process of trying to remember things that I liked and I was good at, I sort of remembered all those old GeoCities pages I used to make when I was young and all of that. And I learned to code. I went to boot camp. Since learning to code, my first job was at an agency, which was absolutely amazing experience. So I got to work on code bases of so many different types of companies, from sort of national banks here in the UK to
I think Suzanne froze for a sec.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Developer, kind of awesome. And am I still here?
Yeah, you just froze for a sec.
Now I can hear you.
It's okay. Like I was telling you, it's the beauty
Oh
of the
no.
stream. We always have something that goes sideways, and it's kind of like our brand. It's on brand for us, so it's all good.
Cool.
All right. I think you
Well, I
kind
was just
of
saying,
you're talking about getting to work at the agency, and that was a great
yeah.
job, and then you can kind of go from there if you want.
Yeah, sure. So I moved on from there to a fintech company, which
Okay.
was like a whole different set of challenges, like
Yeah.
very business to business sort of stuff. And then now I'm here, and it's a whole different set of challenges again. So just looking forward to learning more and yeah, getting into something new.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely different working at like Shopify is like a larger company, definitely compared to startups. I've kind of had similar experiences where I've worked in small shops like or startups, and then like before joining Dev, I worked at a large kind of engineering company called Autodesk, and it's like 40,000 people or something. So it's like there's pros and cons to each type of business, but still interesting experiences. But yeah.
I actually think it's interesting though, like Forem compared to the startups I've worked at, it's a very different vibe. Like Forem seems to sort of not to like brag about this job, but it seems to like sort of teeter in between the busyness of a startup and a big company. So it's kind of perfect. From my experience.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I think it
that
has
rings
been
true
for
with
me
me.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I'm not just saying it because I work here now, but it's I even have it on my website, but it is
We
my
want to
this is
keep
my dream
streaming.
job. Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Don't fire me, let us stream. Um, but no, I just really like the vibe here, and like all the coworkers, and the work's interesting, and it's it just it it's checked off so many boxes for me. Like, I mean, the remote thing for sure. Like, I mean, because it was always remote. Well, not always. I think the company initially, because most of the
They had
developers
an
were in New
office
York.
for a little
Yeah,
bit.
in
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was in Flatiron, New York, where the office was, or it was close to there. But like in the early days, it was the co-founders, Jess, Ben, and Peter, and then they're like Andy and Mac were there, and I think maybe a few other people. And I'm not sure, but I think Saran from Code Newbies and like Disco, I think she might have worked at the office with him. That I'm not sure though. But I think they, I I think it was when it was Ben was talking about it on, I forget where he was talking about it. It might have been on our first offsite pre-pandemic, but he was saying at one point like people just kind of stopped coming into the office. I think because some people had moved out further out of New York City, and then at some point they just said like, hey, let's just go full remote. So definitely not complaining about that. Like I think I don't know about either anybody else here, but I don't know if I'm a sociable person, but I don't know if I'd want to work in an office again now. I've like fully embraced like remote life. So it's
I think
Yes,
Go ahead. Go ahead, both of you.
Suzanne, go.
Go ahead,
I
Suzanne.
was just
Yep.
going to say same, but like interestingly, I don't know like if this opportunity had come up for me pre-pandemic, I don't know if I would have felt as confident about going for a remote only job. But
okay.
like so many people, I've spent loads of the last year
Yeah.
like working remotely for a company that was not set up to work remotely whatsoever, and it kind of did give me the confidence that like, well, yeah, I can definitely enjoy this. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference between like async remote work like we do and then just like companies jumping into just trying their best at everyone being remote,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
all of my roles have been remote, so I can't say whether I'd want the office, but they have been at extremely different companies as far as how they handled remote. Like part of the company would be remote, or the people who were not remote, the remote people felt like, hey, you're forgetting us, and kind of the situation where I feel like that's can't happen here because we all we all have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
communicate remotely, so that's been a good thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, having said
Um,
that, yeah. Oh,
We're
go
gonna do
ahead.
this a lot because there's 4 of us, so it's okay if I pause.
Yeah.
Go ahead and keep going. So we're all going to do that a lot because everyone has a little bit of a delay and there's 4 of us. So don't feel bad if someone kind of jumps over each other. If I pause, just keep going.
Yeah. No, I think it's the first time we have 4 people on the stream. Uh, We're
Yeah.
usually 3. We've been 2 once, but yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I enjoyed working in an office. Like, I mean, like the last place I worked at, had a nice cafeteria, coffee machines. They'd have like bagel Mondays, food stuff like that. For sure that's nice. There was a gym in there. There's definitely perks to working in the office, but uh, honestly, that wouldn't convince me enough to go. I mean, it's not to say I would never work in an office again. I guess it depends on the opportunity, but I feel like, especially since the pandemic, like there's going to be a huge, I mean, it's already happening. Like I think, I'm not positive, but I think Shopify said they were going full remote, like permanently. And then like other
Salesforce
companies,
just went mostly remote. That's like the big news because there's like a lot of them.
yeah,
They've gone like I think pretty much all remote now. So yeah.
yeah, and the same with like Microsoft. They still have offices, but once the pandemic happened, I don't have the tweet or like the article, but they said like there's the option now, like if you don't want to work in the office, like that's a 100% viable option. So it's like people are adjusting for sure, and I don't know, it's gonna be interesting to see going forward, like as everybody transitions to more remote. I'm pretty excited for it, but
I actually I am immune compromised. So I was immune compromised before the pandemic. A flu could kill me kind of thing. So like working in tech has always been hard because the offices are open concept and people come to work sick. And so like I think for people with like invisible illnesses, this is like a huge moment where like
Yes.
we feel justified. Well, maybe justified isn't the right word, but like finally like what we need can be accommodated. And at times it can seem like a bit frustrating because I know like I would be shouting from the rooftops, like, get your flu shots, don't come to work when you're sick, don't be a
yeah,
hero. But now
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a good point. I think I saw that a lot from people I follow, on Twitter and stuff in tech, that people who had different like stuff that all these years they were like, really, this couldn't be accommodated, and now, because it's everyone, it can be accommodated. And so I think there's a good point. I think one that it's like, yes, that we're moving towards that now, which is great, but also there's still that valid like frustration of like, really, people have been saying this for this long. I mean, even not that extreme, but something like, hey, I'm a parent in tech and I have 4 kids, and just being able to work remotely is a big deal. Like, it's a great thing to be able to work remotely, and kind of the accommodations people are doing for that now that everyone has their kids at home
yeah.
and everyone has to like, that kind of thing it's been interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
Yeah, like I mean, I have 2 kids, but they're a little older now. They're like 10, 12. So like if they're home from school, they can come. I mean, my oldest, I had to block YouTube on her computer, but aside from that, generally, it's not like if I had a 2-year-old, it would be completely different.
Oh.
But it's definitely easier, like just because they're still in school, so I can just zip over there real quick. Or like one of my daughters, like the campus is split up, so the senior campus is close to our house, so I can just walk and go get her. And because it's Canada, yes, you can literally snowshoe to pick them up if you wanted to, or cross country ski. But but there's other things I like about it too. Like I like going to the gym. It keeps me sane. And during the pandemic, gyms are closed, at least in Quebec and Ontario, where Katie and I are. I'm assuming other provinces are, but so I've been doing like Zoom group workouts with like a personal trainer I know, and it's like it took a week or two to get adjusted getting up at like 5:50 in the morning, but like I do it in the morning. I made this like kind of makeshift gym in the garage, and it's like I get it out of the way and I feel better the rest of the day. And that's, you know, going to work. Yes, I used to go to the gym first and stuff, but then you're lugging all your stuff. You've got like dirty gym laundry with you the rest of the day. And I mean, these are clearly first world problems, but I don't know. I just like the convenience of the remote work, you know, and also like, hey, you know, I gotta do something for 2 hours. I'm just gonna finish work later, you know. It's like stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's
All right, I'm going to transition us a little bit. I'm going to start talking about a few other things. So I kind of want to know from y'all's perspective, we mentioned this a little before we went live here. You guys are getting used to kind of the code base and everything. How does it feel? Because a lot of times we have people watching who are either people who want to contribute, they haven't contributed to like our open source and stuff. How has it been like getting used to the setup, getting used to the code base and things like that? Do you have any advice for people wanting to do that as you're going through it?
Sure. It's been really interesting for me because like I've sort of done Reacty front end development for like most of my career so far, but all single page applications. Like,
Mhm.
and also like I hate to say it, but without too much focus on performance and progressive enhancement and all of those like good things that we do try to do a lot of here.
yeah.
Like, so it's been really different coming into a code base that obviously has Rails, it has Preact, yes, but it's being used in I'd like to say a more judicious way. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been interesting. And I know for me, I'm always someone who has to just learn by doing. Like, I think I could sit and look and click through files until the end of time and I wouldn't like really understand. I really need to just like try to do something and
Yeah.
hit those walls. And like, I think, I've picked up a couple of sort of smallish issues since being here, and those have all brought on my understanding as I came. But I mean, I think the documentation we have is good, and like, I didn't have any problems getting set up with the code base or any of that. So that's all super positive for anyone else who wants to sort of start contributing. Like, I was able to just follow those steps and get going, which was awesome and unexpected, to be honest. Like, I expected to get super stuck, but I didn't. And yeah, just sort of going through trying to fix things and gradually unraveling the different layers. So, I've been working on this one issue about, let's just do something different with our modals. And I started to see, oh, we've got some in Preact world, or we've got some in non-Preact world, oh, we've got some in these liquid tags that we use, we've got some in Stimulus.js, and like that's all an amazing learning curve. But it was all like, ooh, what have we got here? What have we got here? Yeah. So yeah, it's been good so far, but definitely like very different from like previous code bases I've been in.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, I came from being like, reactify all the things, everything in JS. And so to be quite honest, it's been humbling. Like, I came in being like, I'm a senior web engineer. This will not be hard. Setup was easy. I was like, I'll get going. I'm going to take over everything. And then like, I've been stuck in an ERB file for like 3 days, which is like very humbling. But it's good. And I would say like there's so much that needs to be done, especially on the front end, like so many simple little things that anyone could just dive into. Like if you see a lint rule that's missing, maybe we could write an RFC for that and get that put in. And that's like easy janitor work, or just like cleaning up CSS. We have a lot to do there. And like I have dreams of building a very robust design system and like getting Storybook just like top of its class. So I think like there's a lot to do. It's really fun and it's cool. And same thing as I haven't been thinking about performance much. It's just like it hasn't been top of mind. So it's been really neat because like Ben especially just like seems to know so much about that. And it's like Dev is like the fastest website. It's incredible. So I just like want to learn and figure out how I can like apply this stuff in my work. It's been great, but humbling. I can't stress that enough. I haven't written CSS in so long. It takes me a long time. I have to ask for help and stuff. Yeah.
It's all good. All good.
Yep. We do have a question. If you all have, so someone wants to know, tell about your first contribution to open source, if you've had one previously, or if it's now while you're working at Dev, or at Forem. So.
Yeah, I mean, I got started with open source, I think, in 2019 Hacktoberfest, because I'd been a member of Dev for a little while, and I'd sort of been posting some little things and sort of doing my own side projects. And then, of course, like Dev was sort of part of promoting Hacktoberfest and supporting and encouraging people. And I thought maybe I could do something. So I ended up setting out to fix accessibility issues in open source, because that's kind of my sort of side project, my sort of little passion project is Up Your Alley, which is an accessibility site. And I thought it would be cool if I found a way to like contribute those skills to open source projects that quite often, I think people often don't know what needs fixed, you know, like they don't even know where to start with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just did the 4 pull requests for Hacktoberfest, and I did it across a range of different repositories. So I did one for like Gatsby.js for their documentation. They had some issues with heading levels that I fixed. I contributed to some sort of small group that was doing like basically like a type form equivalent, I guess, like sort of forms where accessibility is so important. And a few other things as well. And it was like such a good experience. I wrote it up on Dev, actually, if anyone ever wants to know what that experience was like. I do have a post on Dev about it.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's quite daunting to get into, I
think. Yeah, was it your Hacktoberfest retro post?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it.
Ali Hacktoberfest retro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's it's interesting open source, because I know, because I've been mentoring some people outside of work too, and like a lot of the feeling I get from a lot of people is they get very intimidated by, like, there's a few things, you know, like if you're not super familiar with Git, like, I mean, I don't consider myself a Git pro at all, but like there's like Git stuff I do every day, so it's just kind of like memory. But you know, there's the barrier of like understanding Git first, which intimidates people sometimes, and then there's like some people I've spoken to, it's like, oh my god, everybody's gonna see my code, you know, it's gonna, you know, what if I do something wrong or whatever, you know. And they're all valid feelings. Like I remember when I did my first pull request, it was like 2015, I think it was late 2015 or whatever, and I was like, I have to make this pull request perfect, you know. And then I stressed about putting it up. I put it up, and then of course there was errors, and this was like prettier and stuff, so like people were asking in the PR like, can you change the formatting, and so there was like a bunch of stuff. And then so, you know, but you know, the band-aid got torn off at that point, and then you just kind of, I don't know, I say YOLO a lot, but you just kind of got to go with it at that point, you know. It's kind of, it's a humbling experience when you first start, but it's I've seen huge benefits to personally in my career from contributing to open source. So
it's kind of nice just to connect with people as well. I kind of find I haven't like continued to contribute a lot to open source at all, like after Hacktoberfest, but I made so many nice connections. Like, I think Hacktoberfest in particular is a good way to get into it, because people do label their repositories and their issues as like, this one is good for you as a potentially like new person to this. And like people were so friendly, and even like the requests where I did have to change some things or it wasn't quite well scoped out enough for me to make decisions, you know, and I had to ask. Like people were super friendly, and I feel like I found some like nice corners of the internet, whereas before that, I really thought of open source as like quite a scary, like you see a lot of like tech stuff on Twitter that's like, do not touch, you know, like, and I kind of just thought open source contributing was going to be a little bit like that I was going to be like an outsider bothering someone, but like people love getting help in their code bases, you know, so
for sure.
It was nice.
Yeah, my
Katie,
first
do you have experience. Yep, there you go.
Go ahead, Katie.
Sorry, I think I'm like a little bit out of focus, so I apologize. But my first experience with open source was actually on the other side. I like avoided contributing to open source, and then all of a sudden was partially responsible for maintaining a bunch of like Ruby gems and open source packages at a big company. And like, it's very intimidating from the other side as well, especially if they are packages and repos that people use to make money, because there is a sense of urgency, and like I was so scared dealing with all these people who were like contributing and asking questions and putting in issues, and I was just like so overwhelmed. And people get like frustrated if stuff isn't fixed that they need fixed to make money, you know.
Oh, yeah,
That's my job.
Yeah. And, but I will say from the other side, every time I got a contribution on something I built, it was the greatest feeling on earth. So I would say for anyone who wants to contribute, please do, because the people on the other side appreciate it more than you know. Even if the PR is like completely broken, won't pass CI, needs like hand holding and mentoring, people will still be thrilled that it came in, because like those contributions mean so much to the people maintaining the repos.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's, so those gems you're talking, I'm assuming those were for Shopify, or was that for another project? Okay.
It's for Shopify,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's intimidating.
yeah, there's a huge ecosystem of third-party developers who like need that stuff to work, and like when something breaks, they're mad, and understandably so. Like they need it to work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's there's definitely like there's that whole other aspect, like from the maintainer's perspective too. Like I've never experienced it, but like a lot of maintainers have experienced burnout. Just because, you know, it's like, I don't know, there's like a section of people that like for whatever reason they just think because it's open source, it's free, that like, hey, fix this, you know, like, you know, like I posted it in the chat, but I gave a talk at Hacktoberfest about contributing to open source, and like from a contributor side, but also like a maintainer side. And it's like, I think, I don't know, this happens on the internet like a lot, but like folks just like completely forget that there's like humans, you know. And it's like, even when people trash talk on like Twitter or whatever, you know, it's like, I don't know if it's because they feel they're somewhat anonymous that they can just kind of like come in and just like trash talk like that. But it's like, what one of the fun things, I don't think I've had to do it on Forem, but I think I did it on another repository I'm a maintainer of. But like somebody was complaining, and then, or like, get this fixed, and you know, you just, all you have to respond is like, looking forward to your contribution. and then it's kind of like saying F you, but in the most politest way. So it's kind of funny.
That is very polite.
I have not used this yet. You probably will not see this on Forem, but we do have a newer system. I mean, along this lines, all of us developers and people at Forem have a newer system of how we're handling stuff like feature requests, which we were previously dev, and now we are Forem. Lots of our feature requests were very dev specific, and we have to have this mental model of thinking of all of the forums. So all of the forums are lots and lots of communities, and if we add on a bunch of stuff to just dev, it goes to everything right now. And so we have to really think about that. And so that has been one of those areas we've been shifting through. It's kind of like going through and being like, okay, you know, we can't accept this feature anymore. And so that's just one of those things that you kind of have. But yeah, let's get back to more of Katie and Suzanne here. As we were talking, someone mentioned what's the topic for today. Today we have our wonderful new co-workers, Katie and Suzanne, and we are just chatting with them and getting to know them a little bit more. So Lumjacker, that is our topic for today. So Suzanne, I'm just gonna start posing questions to each of you, if that's cool. Okay. Suzanne, we know, Nick and I know that you do a lot with CSS. We talked about it a little bit. Would you like to talk kind of about your 100 days of, I can't remember exactly what it was called. What was it? 100 days of?
Yeah.
There's so many 100 days.
Yeah. So like it's part of this overarching thing in Scotland called the 100 Days Project, which is
Thank you.
Like it's like a big organized thing across Scotland, mostly on Instagram, where like different creatives choose a thing to do every day for 100 days. And I sort of found out about it because my partner is an illustrator, so he was doing it, and I was like, okay, it's lockdown, I can do something with this, right?
Okay, so this is going across the spectrum of things, not just like developers.
Yeah,
so this is kind of okay, that's cool.
Everything. To give you a bit of a flavor, like, so my partner does portrait illustration, so he was doing that. I have a friend who was drawing chickens every day for 100 days. Like literally just chicken,
Yeah.
100 chickens,
Pollo
more
loco.
than 100 sometimes. And then there was also someone who was making art from tea bags. Was another like weird one that was going on. So all sorts of stuff. And
That's
I
cool.
kind of thought, I'm not the artiest person, to be honest. Like I really like creativity with boundaries, which I think is why I really like programming. Like I want to create things, but like I'm not so artistic. So like it's awesome if a designer says like make it look like this, and then I can like make
Yes, that's
something.
my favorite too. Give me all
Yeah.
your designs,
Absolutely love it.
designers.
So I
I,
thought like maybe I can do something for this project, but like with programming, because it felt like something like a niche that maybe wasn't represented in this like broader thing. And so like I think I called my project Suzanne Makes 100 Things in CSS, which is
okay.
like probably the most vanilla name I could have thought.
That's to the
And
point though.
yeah, every day for 100 days, I just made like a piece of CSS art, like really very like flat 2D, some very basic animations. And it was just really like there wasn't any theme beyond it's in CSS. Like it was just stuff that I thought of. So like I needed to do laundry, so I made my washing machine. I
Yeah,
met my
yeah.
friend's dog, so I did her dog. You know, it was like like some of it was almost like a diary of my life.
That's
Yeah, but I
awesome.
learned so much about CSS through that 100 days. Like it was way more transferable to my work than I thought it was going to be because it's all about sort of placing items, understanding positioning, like all of that
Hmm.
stuff. So it was like way more useful than I thought. I thought I was just going to just do this nonsense for fun, but like, it turns out
Yeah.
it's really hard, and you do learn a lot of good CSS from it.
No, that's
Definitely.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I got to create a course after I did it because you just learn so much, and I taught other people because you learn so much CSS like from like having to do something that people find to be very random sometimes, like why, what's the point? And we were talking about this the other day, like what's the point? There's a
Yeah.
point. You learn quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
heard that a
trying to.
lot. But why?
I'm trying to remember
Why
who's.
not?
We were when we were talking about the other day, Christina. I can't remember the person's name. I'm pretty sure she works at Atlassian. She's the one that did like the girl with the curly.
Diana
That
Soy.
yeah.
I will try to
It was
find it again.
yeah her and then I don't know her real name. A lot of these people I just know by Twitter handles, but Lynn and Tonic with the
Yeah,
single div.
Flint.
That everything she does is like amazing. It's uh,
Yeah,
it's
incredible.
pretty
What is
wild.
it? Smith.
But
Diana Smith is her name.
okay.
Let me-
Um,
I will-
I had a question for you, Katie. Curious, because you said you're working a lot with like you're doing a lot of JavaScript tooling, and I'm guessing that's stuff like related to the bundlers and just like in-house tooling. Like what kind of stuff were you building when you were doing that at Shopify?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Like, I so the biggest project I did in tooling was probably helping to build this CLI tool, which the tool itself was written in Ruby,
Okay.
and just like vanilla Ruby. But what it did was create apps. So it would create a Rails app or it would create a Node app, and that's where it gets interesting because like so we wrote everything in vanilla Ruby. But
Okay.
then I also wrote a Node app. But then on top of that, the CLI would you could run commands to generate code. So that's where it got really cool because like there was a lot of like AST stuff I did. So
Okay.
code mods like and that sort of thing. And it got really neat. So I like built an NPM package that would like a bin script in the Node app would call that and then you could generate commands and like it would build out like webhook calls or different API things like billing stuff. This is specific to Shopify apps. But so it was all like this weird tooling around that.
Okay.
Um, and then I was just like responsible for like maintaining all of the JavaScript around that. So it's just like a little bit of everything, but it predominantly focused around ASTs.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a cool topic on its own. Like I remember I was working at this AI startup, and it was when React pulled out prop types out of the React core, and then they provided these code mods, so it ran these tools that touched the AST, and then it was able to just do the transforms, which like
Yeah.
Facebook obviously does that at scale on their massive code bases, but like even I mean, we had a pretty big code base, obviously not Facebook code base, but and it worked like super well. And it's like refactoring on steroids, practically.
It's
I have a
like
question.
magic.
Question.
So
All right.
Can I ask what are, and you may have said it, and I probably will know after you say it, but what are ASTs?
abstract business trees, I believe. I could
Thank
be
you.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can use Babel, and it's actually really cool. There's like a web interface where you can view your JavaScript as as an AST. It's really neat. I should find the link and send it to you, Christina. But
Yeah.
it's just a way to use your code as different nodes so that you can target them and do different things to them.
Yeah.
That's a very non-computer science way to say that.
Yeah, I posted the link. It's astexplorer.net. I posted in the chat, but yeah, no, it's super cool because like you can do stuff like I mean, you can literally do anything. Like you could even convert JavaScript to like another language, for example, because the AST is really just like what the code is doing in that particular syntax, but there's nothing to say you couldn't change like a JavaScript for loop into like a Ruby for loop, for example. And I'm sure somebody's already done stuff like this, but it's kind of neat because I haven't really built any tooling myself with it. I've consumed tools like code mods. There's a it's a Facebook tool called CodeShift, I believe. That's what a lot of the code mods are built off of. And I know Kent C. Dodds has a bunch of Babel code mods, or he has some well, Kent C. Dodds has a package for everything, but anything, but yeah, I forget what his one is called. It's like Babel transforms or something, but yeah, it's like super cool stuff, and I'm gonna find it.
Best.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it, but sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, all I was gonna say is my favorite kind of coding is just when you like write dirty scripts to do magic things, which is horrible to I should be like, I love to write beautiful, clean code, but really I like to write like weird scripts that just like do background things.
Yeah,
I had a coworker who would do this for like everything. Like he had this stuff where like we tended to open all the same kind of windows every day and all the stuff we would have to do, and we worked with Drupal and we'd have to, like do all kinds of stuff, and he would just write a script, just one script, and like everything would open up for him every morning. He was always doing weird little scripts and they were great.
Yeah. I'm very obsessed with like DevX too, and like making the user experience of tools really great. But that's a whole nother conversation. Sorry.
That's all right. No, we can get into whatever conversation. I do want to say one more thing here. So Katie, I because I want to hear this story, but also Katie's slightly famous. Maybe we can say that a little bit. She was on. She's like, no, I'm not.
It's all the dirty laundry's coming out.
She was on the not the Scott Brothers. What did they actually call the show? What's the show? The name of the show? The Property Brothers. She was on the Property Brothers. Tell us the story. We want to know about it. I'm going to send a link to what you sent me, but give us a little background on that before we start talking more code.
Well, basically, like I'm a big dreamer. And I love reality TV, like deeply obsessed. I'll watch it. I don't care. And somebody posted on the internet, like, the Property Brothers are looking for people in Toronto. And I was like, I'm going to get on it. And my husband was like, okay, Katie, sure thing. And I applied, and like I was like, mark my words, I'm going to be on it. And I was at work, and I like told the entire team, I'm going to be on the Property Brothers. And they were like, you're nuts. And then we got on.
Into existence.
It works. And we got on, and it was a wild experience. Like, if you can get onto a home reno television show, I would highly recommend it because they do the work very quickly, and then your house is worth a lot more money. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty much win-win. And they're really nice. The Property Brothers are not jerks. They're very tall. That's it.
Being tall makes them not jerks.
Yeah. Tall, polite people is the takeaway here.
Yeah, they're Canadian, so that probably is part of it.
Oh,
But
there we go. Yeah.
yeah, no, it was like a pretty wonderful experience. All things like our tools got stolen from our house. That sucked. They like left the door open and they came in and stole my husband's tools. But
Oh,
other than
no.
that, it's great. I love reality TV. I also tried to be on the Great Canadian Bake Off. I got to the finals. I was very close.
What?
It's amazing.
All right.
too
I'm just
much.
like waiting for the next thing you're going to be on, Katie. This is
Yeah.
exciting.
Don't give too many. We gotta leave no spoilers. We gotta tease the crowd so next time we can come back and talk about souffles and like adding too much baking soda or I'm not sure what. That reminds me. And you must have seen Nailed It. That show kills me. It's on Netflix. With I think the host is Nicole. She's always just
It's
like
Suzanne. It's similar to like, I don't know if you know what Pinterest is or not Pinterest, where people go on and they show all these great things while people try to do the same thing. And they're like, nailed it, because they're always horrible. They're like horrible things.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, trying to make some kind of cake that looks like a minion, and then yours looks nothing like a minion, and you're just like,
Yeah.
nailed it. Did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, sweet pizza cube saying like cake fails. Yeah, there's that, or there's I know we're not talking about Dev now, but there's also Sugar Rush, which cracks me up too. It's like I don't know, they put out some pretty good stuff on Sugar Rush though, but the Nailed It kills me because it's like they'll have professionals show like this perfectly crafted like I don't know they use too much fondant. I don't know who eats, does anybody eat fondant? Like I feel like
That's
it's
what
just,
I always think.
it's like the Play-Doh
No,
of
no waste of
like,
time.
yeah.
It's
that's
just
like,
supposed to make it look good.
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
it tastes
Yeah, I
really
figure. Yeah. It's like my mom. My mom loves marzipan. I don't know. It's not really my thing, but
Oh, I love marzipan.
I do too. It's really good.
Well, there you go.
Really into hard into
You're-
marzipan.
You're overridden there, Nick.
yeah. No, that's all good. No, I think it was because I was more traumatized. Because, anyways. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna bring
Christina.
this in. All right. Next question. Suzanne, tell us how you got into, and I always think this is interesting. I think everyone should be, but not everyone is. And so I always find it interesting when people do kind of devote a little bit more time. But how did you get into kind of Ally and, accessibility and stuff like that?
Yeah, kind of accidentally because I had to. So when I worked for that agency that I mentioned, like we took on a contract that was, it was almost like, well, we called it a bake-off internally, like because a couple of agencies were basically building the same thing as like an audition to then get a bigger piece of work or to actually make the real thing. So we were trying to make this proof of concept, and they'd sort of outlined all of their criteria. And it was like a big national bank, and they have a design system, they have really great accessibility guidelines, and like they're very strict on it because they should be and they have to be, by law. And like we kind of, like, to be honest, the agency I worked for, like we'd traditionally been a mobile app agency. So we did like native Android and iOS, and we were quite new into doing sort of React apps. Like we were building stuff and it looked really good, but we didn't really know, is it accessible or not? Like, what does that actually mean? So I kind of ended up doing a lot of research. I think it all began when I received a pull request from someone in the team where like tab index -1 had been added to every element. And I was like, why? What is this? What is this code? And they were saying, oh, now you can like tab to everything on the page and it reads it out. And I was like, the internet can't be made this way. It just can't be made this way, like that you have to add this same property to every element. And so I ended up just taking it upon myself to learn a bit. I learned so much from that project. I was so lucky to get to work on it. And like the app that we ended up making for them, they actually road tested with a consultant who was blind, and he gave his feedback on what we built as well. And that was kind of a very illuminating experience as well, to see not just like, because obviously I read a lot about how screen readers and different assistive technologies worked and how people used them, but I feel like you never really know. Like I never claimed to be like an expert in accessibility because I just don't think I ever could be, because I don't have a disability that requires me to use assistive tech at all. And so it was really great to get that feedback from somebody who actually had real knowledge and experience. And I guess like from there, like I started doing like lunch and learns at my work, putting together the things that I'd learned. And then I was like, oh, I've got all these resources of like stuff that I've learned that I didn't know and is really useful, which eventually became the site that I maintain, that Up Your Alley, or Up Your A11Y, if you don't like puns. Yeah. You do Up Your A11Y, if not. I just sort of like gathered everything in there, and like it's just an ongoing process, because I just feel like with blogging and things, like just writing down what you've learned is so useful. I still revisit old things that I've written on that site to help myself, because it's like I know this, but I've forgotten. So I end up revisiting. But yeah, and I think it's one of those things, the more you know, like there's no going back really. Like I don't think there's many devs out there who are actively choosing to like suppress some knowledge of something that could be better in terms of accessibility. I don't believe that's happening. I think just once you know, you know, and then you start doing it, and hopefully it infects other people as well. I think it has a little ripple out effect when you get somebody who's, you know, contributing to a code base, or like, you know, looking at pull requests and stuff, who has that perspective. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I know you both know, but Marcy Sutton, who's an accessibility expert, she worked with our team for about 6 weeks at the end of the year last year, and she added, well, aside from doing some great contributions, she added some really great starter documentation that's linked in our pull request template. So, because like people contributing, you know, they might be like, oh, I'm just gonna fix the button or whatever, but they might not know all the implications of like any accessibility. So she put that in place so that it's meant to be a guide that's not too overwhelming, but still welcoming, because there is a lot of accessibility information out there. Like I'll post his Twitter handle after, but Todd Libby, who's a big accessibility advocate, I was listening to one of his talks at a brown bag this afternoon about contrast, and he was just going on about the WCAG, just like there's so much information in there that it's intimidating too. So he's actually going to be on the stream in, not next week because we're doing a pairing session, but I'm pretty sure he's on in 2 weeks. So is it 2 weeks or is it? I think so. I'll double check.
I don't remember right this minute, but
yeah. But yeah. So.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because the stuff that I did learn about accessibility was the stuff that, like, it was at an agency. Like I was working at an agency, my first job, and I wasn't aware of like half the stuff that you probably should before you even get a job. But we worked with a lot of government contracts, and you had to be like, you know, you had to think about that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to work with a couple coworkers who really took it seriously, besides just like working on the government contracts, and took the time to teach me and things. And so, yeah, there's always a ton to learn. And just like you said, we got to work with someone too, to a lot of things as well, like even just things you don't think about, like you know, on Twitter when people put like a million emojis in like their, you know, their name and stuff, just the assistant having to like read out every single emoji. You're just like, oh, okay, yeah, you don't think about these kinds of things. It's
clapping hands, clapping hands.
Yeah. No, it's making me think of something else too. Like I open it up.
Do you have a question for anyone, or I'll ask another question if you don't?
I don't have a question at the moment. I was looking at my Twitter briefly because some people were responding to I was tweeting out about the stream, but so my brain kind of froze.
Okay, I will ask my question then. So someone in here likes JavaScript in our chat, and Katie, I know you mentioned you work with JavaScript a lot when you were I know you didn't get to work with CSS as much as maybe you get to now. Let's get a little not spicy, I guess, but what are your favorite things about JavaScript? What are your least favorite things about JavaScript? I think everyone has this with JavaScript. What is one thing that you love? What is one thing you don't love so much about JavaScript?
I will say the same thing I always say I love about JavaScript is that I think it's a very accessible language. I think anyone can pick up JavaScript. It's a lot easier to approach than Python. It's a lot easier to approach than like, I don't know, Swift. Like there are barriers there. JavaScript is the language of the web. So like people learn jQuery or whatever, or they learn about dev tools and they like write out some console logs and all of a sudden they can make magic. So to me, that's like the best thing about it. I could get more technical and be like, its asynchronous nature is interesting or something. But I think it's cool because it's accessible and it powers the web. Like it was built for the internet, my favorite place. And the thing I like the least about it is that it's not strictly typed and it's wild. And ever since I took up TypeScript, I can't go back. Like I'm having such trouble right now in our code base because I don't have TypeScript. It's
You
too
can pioneer that RFC we have to get some TypeScript in.
Yeah.
Pioneer champion.
Yes,
but yeah, it's out of control. You can do anything with JavaScript. After like learning other languages and learning their like strict rules and like you can get great error messages. I'm just like, what are you doing, JavaScript? You're a nightmare. But I love it.
I wish they would
that was
add
one of the
like
things I liked about React versus JavaScript because the errors were so much nicer. Like just regular JavaScript, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead,
definitely.
Nick.
No, I was gonna say definitely giving great errors is a really good thing you can do for developer experience. Like I'm by no means a Ruby expert, but like I dip into it because our code base is primarily Ruby, and like a lot of times when you're like running the setup or like if I updated something, it clearly tells you what to do. Like it'll say you need to run the DB migrations, and like it literally shows you the command. I copy it and paste it, and then keep going and stuff, and yeah, no, the I guess the TypeScript part, it's not so spicy now because a lot of people have been adopting it, but yeah, I opened up an issue in the well, it was the dev repo at the time, but I don't know, it's like a couple years ago. This was when like Flow was somewhat popular, but not really. It was really more Facebook and some sites. Like I know Khan Academy was using it and stuff, but yeah, I've been using TypeScript since 2015, and it's definitely, you definitely feel it when you go from a TypeScript code base and then you go back to a JavaScript code base, because there's a but the funny thing is like anybody that uses VS Code, not everybody realizes it, but like it's built with TypeScript, and that's how you get all these features in VS Code, like the refactoring, the IntelliSense, that's all TypeScript. So it always makes me chuckle a bit when somebody complains about TypeScript and they don't realize they're using it to some degree. But
yeah, no, definitely. We are hitting about an hour, I'm going to say, so we can try to wrap this up a little, and hopefully have either one of you or both of you another time on to kind of talk about some other stuff, maybe go through some code. We could do a pairing or something, but we are going to wrap this up a little. So we had Katie and Suzanne on today, who are our newer coworkers, helping Nick out with the front end, working on different areas in the code, helping us with accessibility on some things that we definitely needed, and helping us in just a lot of different areas. So we're excited to have them. Would either of you like to say anything before we wrap up? You can. You don't have to.
it kind of sounds like it sounds like you have to now.
It feels kind of loaded now. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. You can say something.
Thank you for having me. Just something like that.
Yeah. So nice to see you, the internet. See you later.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, we'll be back again next week at 6 p.m. UTC, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing a pairing stream with Jonathan Young. We haven't figured out what issue yet, but he'll be on next week. And then after that, we've got all kinds of guests coming on. But so stay tuned. Give a follow to twitch.tv/thepracticaldev if you haven't already. And we will see you next week. Later.